guys and fellow heres. Welcome back to my channel. This video is also another one that's by request. Some of you wanted me to do a video on how to conduct yourself when the wealthy man that you're dating pressures you to have sex when he hasn't even invested in you. Yes, girls, we've all been there. The touchy-feely guy, the guy that's pressuring you, and he hasn't even done anything to earn it. So we're going to dive into that today. But before I get into that, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so we can get more viewership and I can monetize this channel at some point in time. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, my usual disclaimer. Everything I'm saying here is what works for me. You don't have to listen to it, period. Okay, now I know some of the sugar dating gurus out there tell you not to sleep with your wealthy man and to scam your way into his pockets, and that is true to an extent, minus the scamming part. I am never a proponent of scamming anyone or doing anything shady. You see, I can tell you from experience that you get a lot more out of a man as his girlfriend and wife than you would as some woman that keeps scamming him out of money with promises of you giving him sex. And let me explain. This strategy of, dangling the carrot has a shelf life. It works to an extent. Obviously, there are many men that will pay women just to be in their company, but if you're thinking long term, you need to keep some type of relationship in the back of your mind. Like, you really should be dating to get married. That is the ultimate bag secured because when you're the wife, you have access to everything. Now, there are two types of wealthy men. The players, as in they're used to women throwing themselves at them quite often, and the practical man who doesn't like wasting his time. Before I dive into breaking down these types, I will tell you right away that all men want sex, even gay men. They just don't want it from women. But all men want sex. Now, whether or not you make them earn it is up to you. So let's talk about the wealthy player. This guy is used to using his wealth, subtly of course, to get what he wants. He's a regular at all the high-end spots, and the staff love him because he's a generous tipper. He also uses this to impress women who then turn around and throw themselves at him because they want to date him. This man is charming and charismatic, but as the night goes on and your date goes on, he will start getting a little handsy. He will start talking about how he finds you attractive and how he wants to bed you. In between, he will tease you with all the things women like, such as asking you if you're able to travel with him. That's the big one. He might talk about attending high-value events like charity events or VIP sporting events, etc. He will most definitely try to steal kisses, but will progressively get even more aggressive as the night goes on if you don't nip it in the bud. Now, how do you handle it? Well, you want to start off playful. Hopefully, he's not straight up groping your private areas. Unfortunately, money doesn't guarantee that a man will behave like a gentleman at all times, especially when they've been drinking too. You just never know. In fact, one can almost say that money tends to embolden certain men. So let's walk through some scenarios. If he places his hand on your thigh and you don't want him getting fresh, just grab and hold his hands gently with a smile on your face, but your eyes should be telling him, you better fucking stop. If he tries to do more, tell him you're in public and you really don't feel comfortable with him doing that as people watch. If he tries to convince you that no one is watching, just firmly grab his hand and say stop or no means no. Say it firmly and he'll get the point. Remember, he has to earn the naughtiness with you. Plus, certain overtly sexual behavior is just cross and you shouldn't be engaging in them anyway, especially if that's not your man and if he hasn't spent money on you. Okay, so let's say he grabs your face and tries to mouth rape you. I mean, this is not even funny, but men are really this bold. Anyways, you can let out a small screech or say, oh my God, you can't steal kisses, mister. Let me come to you. Say it flirtatiously or depending on the situation, just have this look of shock in your face and that should, make him pipe down. Or you can just freeze and say, really? But like I said, try to do all this playfully if it's his first offense. But if it's not, you can be firm. Also, you can deflect this pushy behavior by showing him other forms of affection. your hands on his thigh, having him sit next to you instead of from across the table from you. So that way you can do gentle touches. And men love physical touch. That is their number one love language, because physical touch leads to sex. So just your hand on his thigh, or maybe even running your fingers through his hair, or kissing him on the cheek here and there. So you can show him other forms of affection, and that'll help deflect his pushy behavior because you're giving him attention in public, which is really what men want. They want to be seen with a gorgeous woman giving them attention in public, because that means they're the man. Remember, their ego. It's huge and you have to stroke it. But never feel obligated to deal with aggressive sexual behavior from a man just because he's wealthy. He has no right to force himself on you, and you can just say no. Just be sure to say it with the proverbial smile on your face so you're not coming across as bitchy. Yep, we as ladies have to walk the line on a daily basis, and sometimes I know it can get exhausting. Okay, story time. So I was hanging out in Palm Beach a few weeks ago. I had a client there and decided to freestyle over there at one of my regular spots. If you want to know where that was, join the show's Patreon page, patreon.com/TSEGP. It's only $1 a month to join, and that helps with admin costs. And, it helps support the show, and I thank you. In any case, I went to my favorite, one of my favorite restaurants over there in Palm Beach. And the minute I walked in, which is, I love when I walk into a place, shit just starts happening. Like, it's either I walk into a place and I just walk into money, or it's dead. It's never in between for me. But anyways, I walk into a place, and the minute I walk in, I head to the bar. I'm about to sit down on the very end of the bar because the bar was full and that was the only spot left. There were two men discussing, and as I was trying to sit there, they're like, no, you don't have to sit at the end. Sit here, we'll move. I was like, oh my God, thanks. So I sat down, I'm perusing the menu, and just a few seconds later, two guys walk in behind me, and some people were leaving, so they got to sit next to me, which those seats now became available. So the guy sits down and he goes, hello, beautiful. And I was like, hi, handsome. And he was like, oh my God, I love that you did that. Thank you so much. He was an older guy, your typical waspy Palm Beach guy, the type. Anyways, we start talking for all of 2 seconds, and he's like, hey, whatever she's having, we're covering her entire tab. I was like, oh my gosh, thanks. Anyways, so we're talking, joking, laughing. I'm eating, drinking champagne as usual. And of course, when a guy's into you, he's going to want to keep the night going. So he was like, we're about to go check out some other spots. Would you like to join me? I want you to see my car. When guys are bragging like that, it's perfect, because then, you get to assess them and see the situation. But I could already tell he had some money. Anyways, we wrap up dinner, we go. He's driving like the big body Bentley, the newer one. And he was so proud of this damn car. But in my mind, I'm like, shouldn't you have a driver? But anyways, it's Palm Beach. Sometimes they're crazy. So we go to a couple of spots, and then we start drinking, and the night is going on. Then he starts to get a little handsy. And I'm like, I did everything I told you to do. I'm, playful about it. I'm like, watch those hands, mister. And he's going, well, no one can see. I was like, well, I can. And that's a no. So I moved his hand. He tried again a couple of times, and I just moved it, and then he finally behaved. We went to a few other spots. We danced. We laughed. And then he was like, come back to my place. I'm in the penthouse at whatever building. And I knew the building. And I was like, okay. And I drove there, thankfully. So I was like, why don't you take me back to my car? I'm going to drive it to my hotel. And I didn't say I was staying at a hotel. I said I was staying at a friend's. But I told him I was going to drive my car back home, and then I will meet him back at his place. This is a trick that I use for many men that I don't want to go home with, because I'm thinking long-term play. Anyway, so he drives me back to my car, even though he tried to convince me to just come with him. I was like, well, I can't leave my car there to get towed, whatever. He drives me back to my car. And, I kiss him on the cheek goodnight, because I don't reward bad behavior. If he had been a good boy for the entire evening, I probably would have kissed him with tongue. Just like a small one, though, nothing crazy. But because I kept having to deflect his advances, I don't reward bad behavior. He got a kiss on the cheek, and I was like, text me your address. So he texted it to me. And I just drove back to my hotel and, went to sleep and ignored his phone calls. And then the next morning, I called him as I was driving back to Miami. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I fell asleep. I thought I was just going to lie down for a few minutes and then I passed out. He was like, oh, okay, sure. Well, I would like to see you again, blah, blah, blah. And the rest is history. But that's an example of that. And then I'll do another quick story time. This is a guy that I just met. It's funny, our relationship lasted all of 5 days, but I got some shopping out of him. But I met him on, I think, Hinge. Yes, I met him on Hinge. He's a European guy. We went out for lunch. And that's another tip, ladies. If the guy is trying to extend your date, then you know he's into you. Because he kept wanting to go to different places. We went to lunch and then he did something and I said he would have to take me shopping to, pay for his mistakes. It was something silly. But anyway, so he took me shopping the next day. So we met one day. The next day, we went shopping at Bal Harbor and then we had dinner. And then 2 days later, we got together again for brunch, I think. Yeah. And then because I was already out and about, he wanted to meet me. And that's another thing too. I guess I didn't talk about this. For him, he wasn't being handsy. He was just talking about sex a lot. Like how he wants to eat my pussy and fuck me and all this. I was like, I just met you, relax, maybe we should take a nice special trip somewhere. I want our first time to be special, blah, 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 blah. But he kept talking about sex a lot. And I just kept having to say, you have to wait. And then he started talking about, seeing escorts. That's when I knew he was just a cheap reject client. But I still got decent shopping from him. Just a couple thousand, nothing crazy. Anyway, so we went to brunch. We ordered champagne, whatever. The bill ended up being like $500. And I think that was when he realized that he's spending all this money and he still hasn't gotten sex. So on our way back to him dropping me off, he brought up sex again. And I think I brought up money or shopping or something where he would have to spend money. And then he goes, all you do is talk about money. Or no, all you care about is money. And in my mind, I'm going, sir, you talk about sex 24/7. I don't get mad. But I didn't say anything. Because I already knew he wasn't it anyway. I was just going to use him as an experiment and, have fun and move on. So I got out of the car and, told him good night and, never called him again. And I knew he wasn't going to contact me because he was kind of mad that he hadn't gotten anything. But this is the typical example, ladies. It's like they will talk about sex. They would pressure you into it or whatever. But if he's not patient and gets mad, that's on him because he already spent all this money. I mean, not to mention the money we spend when we eat because we're spending a lot of money when we go out to eat because we're going to nice places that I picked. So yeah, he was very agreeable until he realized I wasn't having sex with him that night. And then he was like, oh, you care about his money. I'm like, goodbye, sir. Anyways, now let's talk about the practical guy. This guy will still try you. Don't get me wrong. He just wouldn't be as bold. He will say things like how he's turned off by women asking him for money and gifts right away. Which you shouldn't be doing since he's a long-term play. The only reason why I asked, oh boy, for shopping right away is because I knew he wasn't it and he was about to get dropped anyway. So these are the types you scam for short term. And I wouldn't even call it scamming because I basically just came out and told him to take me shopping because he said something and I was like, oh, I'm offended. Now you have to pay. Whatever. Anyways, and he'll say things like how he's happy to be generous with his woman, his girlfriend. With a guy like this, you just need to be light and happy around him, which would cause him to cautiously make a move and you throw the words right back in his face. Playfully, of course. Tell him you want to get to know him and form an emotional connection before getting physical. Otherwise, it's not going to feel right to you. So if he can't spend money on any woman that's not his woman, you can have sex with any man that's not your man. Obviously, don't say it verbatim, but say it in a roundabout way and he'll get the point. Now, when you use these tactics, normal, rational men will fall in line. But if he falls back, that's okay. It means he's not for you. Case in point, the guy that got mad that I wouldn't sleep with him. Throw him back in the water and let the desperate women fight over him. We don't want that kind of stress in our life. It's 2020. We're only doing strategic dating so we can get to the bag quickly and securely. So yeah, remember that there are actually wealthy men out there who do what they're supposed to do and they act like gentlemen. Those guys deserve all the goodies and cookies in the world. So let's get out there and prosper. That's all I have for this video. I hope you gained some helpful tips. If you have any other extra tips you want to share, please leave them in the comments below. And like I said, if you want to know the place that I went freestyling in Palm Beach, comment on this video on the show's Patreon page, patreon.com/TSEGP. Until next time, bye.